The Epstein saga just took a new and unexpected twist, and congressional Democrats made a surprise move that puts Donald Trump in a very bad spot. He should be shaking in his boots, assuming there's even any room left to shake in those boots. The man has terrible cankles. With Tuesday's special elections wrapped up, and negotiations to end the government shutdown still stagnant, at least in public, the spotlight swings back to the one scandal Donald Trump and his winged monkeys never seem able to shake, the onus of the Epstein files. If you've watched our show, you already know the two questions that won't go away. What did the president know, and when did he know it? And while we're at it, what did the president do, and when did he do it? And this isn't just a Washington story anymore. Across the Atlantic, the United Kingdom is transfixed by the same scandal, only there. The consequences landed with royal force on another key state figure, Prince Andrew, brother of King Charles, who is now, more properly, the man formerly known as Prince Andrew. Buckingham Palace made it official that he will no longer be a prince. King Charles stripped his brother of all titles, styles, and honors. He won't be addressed as His Royal Highness. He won't be prince. He will be Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. That alone would be historic. But it didn't stop there. He's being kicked out of his royal residence. Formal notice has been served to surrender the lease on Royal Lodge, where Andrew has lived for more than 20 years. The palace's statement spelled out something simple and devastating. These censures are necessary, notwithstanding his continued denials, and their Majesty's sympathies remain with victims and survivors of abuse. This is the Crown taking a side not in a criminal trial, but in the moral and institutional arena where reputation, legitimacy, and accountability live. If you've lost the details in the fog of years, here's a refresher that matters for what comes next. Andrew once hosted Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell at his sprawling 30-bedroom mansion during an 18th birthday party for his daughter Beatrice in 2006. The scandal has raged for years, with Virginia Giuffre alleging Epstein trafficked her for sex with Andrew allegations Andrew denies. We all remember the notorious photo of Andrew with Giuffre at Ghislaine Maxwell's London home, and that infamous 2019 interview that backfired spectacularly when he tried to explain away the allegations and claimed he had no recollection of meeting her. Those clips didn't age well, and they matter because they laid down a narrative that later evidence began to chip away. Which brings us to the 2011 email that blew a hole in the storyline. The message reportedly shows Andrew writing to Epstein, "We are in this together," contradicting the claim that he cut off contact in 2010 after public scandal made the relationship indefensible. The phrasing is not vague. "We are in this together" sounds like a partnership, not a goodbye. It's exactly the kind of contemporaneous note investigators treasure because it ties timelines together and undercuts a polished on-camera denial. The email didn't emerge in a vacuum. It arrived in the same universe as the photograph, with Giuffre and the explicit mapping of contacts, trips, and introductions that put elite power circles a handshake away from a convicted sex offender. Now stitch this royal earthquake to Congress, and you get the checkmate move. After the disgrace of Andrew Windsor and his shunning by the royal family, key lawmakers in Washington took notice and developed a plan of their own. Apply pressure on House Speaker Mike Johnson to allow a vote to release the Epstein files. The logic is clean. If the United Kingdom can strip a royal of titles and push him out of a grace and favor residents based on public interest and institutional standards, then surely Congress can demand sunlight for the American people. And the clock started the moment they made their move public. Democratic members of the House Oversight Committee formally wrote to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, requesting an on-the-record interview about his longtime friendship with Epstein. They're not being coy or gentle. 16 Democrats signed the request, and they say he may have crucial information about co-conspirators and enablers of Epstein's crimes. The letter spells out the timeline. The friendship reportedly began in 1999 and continued even after Epstein's 2008 conviction for procuring minors for prostitution. It cites travel with Epstein to New York, to Balmoral, and to Epstein's private island in the U.S., Virgin Islands, where Andrew has been accused of abusing minors. The request calls out the 2011 "We are in this together" email as further confirmation that Andrew may have valuable information about crimes and co-conspirators. And the committee asked him to appear by November 20, stressing the urgency and gravity of the matter. That date isn't scenery. It's a political countdown that forces choices. Let's put names and levers to this. 16 Democrats on the House Oversight Committee signed on, and the panel's top Democrat, Robert Garcia, is taking point publicly. The request they made is not a casual inquiry. It uses the available facts to draw a map of testimony. When the friendship began, where the interactions occurred, who else might have been present, and what the email suggests about continuing contact after a supposed cutoff. That's the anatomy of a focused deposition. It's a signal to Andrew that Congress expects specifics, and to the public that they know what dots to connect. So where does Donald Trump come in? Pressure, optics, and risk. Mike Johnson is the House Speaker. He controls the floor. He decides whether to put transparency initiatives, like releasing the Epstein files, up for a vote. The more oxygen this letter gets, the worse it is politically for Trump, because the central questions swing back to him. What did the president know, and when did he know it? What did he do, and when did he do it? Even if you strip away every partisan flourish, the public will ask why anyone would want to bury the files if there's nothing to hide. The Democrats' gambit with a public clock ticking toward November 20th makes it much harder for Johnson to bury anything procedurally without paying a price in the court of public opinion. It also ricochets through conservative and mainstream media ecosystems. This is not just royal gossip. It's a formal congressional request to a high-profile witness with a new legal name, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, tied to a network of alleged co-conspirators and enablers. Let's break down why the UK timeline is such a force multiplier. The king initiated a formal process to remove Andrew's style, titles, and honors. The palace underscored sympathies for survivors and served notice to surrender the Royal Lodge lease. A renaming to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is more than cosmetic. It signals state-level distancing. The consequences are institutional, documented, and final. When lawmakers in the US look across the ocean and see a head of state cutting off a family member because of reputational and ethical risk, it lowers the political barrier to calling that same figure as a witness. You don't have to prove a criminal case to justify sunlight. You only have to show the public interest in understanding how Epstein's operation moved through elite spaces, who enabled it, and why accountability failed for as long as it did. Now zoom in on the structure of the congressional ask. It's comprehensive but targeted. It reaches back to 1999, runs through the 2008 conviction, and flags travel to New York, Balmoral, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. It cross-references the 2011 email with the 2019 televised denials. It explicitly seeks information about co-conspirators and enablers plural, which is where institutional accountability lives. Enablers are the people who open doors, smooth reputations, arrange travel, provide cover stories, and keep the machine fed. Identifying them matters, because complex crimes rarely run on a single person's energy. They require logistics, money, introductions, calendars, and above all, silence. When silence breaks, maps emerge. This is where the phrase checkmate earns its name. No matter what Andrew does, the story advances. If he declines the invitation, Congress can escalate to a subpoena and hammer the optics of what is he afraid of. If he responds in writing, every answer becomes a breadcrumb for further document demands. Flight manifests, emails, photographs, security notes from Balmoral visits, guest logs in New York, itineraries in the U.S. Virgin Islands. If he agrees to testify, the proceedings themselves become a megaphone that keeps the issue in the headlines for days and weeks. Every scenario puts pressure on Speaker Mike Johnson to authorize transparency on the Epstein files. Every scenario drags Donald Trump further into a vortex he cannot fully control. And yes, the Senate has a role, even if the House is paralyzed by a shutdown or recess. The Senate can call witnesses to gather information relevant to oversight and the public interest. That parallel track matters because it prevents a single chamber from bottling up the entire inquiry. You might not get the fireworks of a joint hearing, but you can build a factual record and keep the drumbeat going. From a political standpoint, this means delaying tactics in the House won't extinguish the issue. They'll only relocate it. Let's talk about the cultural resonance. Americans watched a king strip his brother of titles and status, and then watched a palace move to kick him out of a lavish residence. People ask if the British can do that to a royal. Why can't we at least demand sunlight from our own elected officials and their friends? That's why lines like, "Can't we strip Donald Trump of his title and kick him out of our White House?" strike a chord. Whether you love the phrasing or hate it, the accountability contrast writes itself. In Britain, the consequence was institutional and swift. In Washington, accountability can feel endlessly negotiable. This congressional letter says, not this time. Consider the risk calculus for Trump's orbit. Best case scenario for them. Andrew stonewalls and the story fades. But that ignores the public clock and the file release vote pressure. More likely, drip emails, travel notes, secondary, witnesses, staffers who saw something and said nothing. The 2011 email alone shows how a single sentence can reframe an entire PR campaign. If more contemporaneous communications land about who was invited, who flew where, who signed in, who paid which bills, the argument that this was all a misunderstanding collapses under the weight of specifics. And if it collapses around Andrew, the next question is predictable. Who else enjoyed proximity? Who else offered cover? Who else benefited from silence? There's also the emotional dimension. Survivors and the public are tired of being told that accountability is impossible. Because powerful people know powerful people. The Palace Statement's sympathies for survivors wasn't a flourish. It was a message about who the institution believes deserves the benefit of the doubt. Congress tapping that same moral energy isn't just strategic, it's overdue. When you ask what the president knew and when he knew it, you are really asking whether the most powerful man in the country recognized a predator's network and chose to ignore it, excuse it, or benefit from it. Even the perception that he did any of those things is politically radioactive. Here's how the next few weeks could unfold. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor issues a carefully lawyered response. He offers limited cooperation, written answers, maybe a narrow appearance with conditions. Congress accepts the opening and widens it. Dates, names, locations, communications. The House. Oversight Democrats hold a press conference. Robert Garcia outlines the gaps and sets a new, sharper deadline. Mike Johnson faces a binary choice. Bring an Epstein files release vote to the floor, or eat the cover-up label. Meanwhile, the Senate schedules an informational hearing with experts on trafficking networks and elite access as a prelude to witness testimony. Reporters publish leaked snippets of manifests and emails that corroborate pieces of the letter. The narrative that once felt like tabloid noise becomes a steady civic drum. And every beat lands near Donald Trump's brand: strongman competence, loyalty, invincibility.